And so Rick's kind of given me permission to deviate a little bit from what I was going to talk about. And so what I want to do is give you kind of a visual observation of what strategic irrigation is all about. And I know there's a lot of farmers in here. I think most of you are sitting in the back. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the back the front, and I'm going to make the front the back. So everybody's going to look at this table here in the back. You know, I'm a visual learner, and I suspect that many of you are the same. You learn things better if you can see them than if you are told about them. I had a young son who was actually, I told him, I said, Travis, you know, you're a visual filer. And he said, well, what does that mean? I said, well, you like to see everything you own, so you just spread it all out on the floor, you spread it on top of your desk, and you spread it out on your tables and stuff. Nothing's in the closet or nothing's in the drawers, so you're a visual filer. But anyway, strategic irrigation is an approach that you can use to manage water. All of you people in here are in the business of managing water. And you really get down to the basic question is how do I do it? How do I manage water better than I'm managing it? And there is a way to do it. I've been an ag consultant up here since 1980, and water management has become my passion. The reason why it's become my passion is because we're going to have to learn to manage water. And you can't manage water unless you know how much water the plant needs. You can't manage water unless you have a general relationship on how things did one year as compared to next year. And you need to relate that to the amount of water you have and the amount of water that you apply. And so I'm gonna start off by saying that the Texas Alliance of Water Conservation has done something to me that is extremely critical for people to better manage water in the future. To me, it is absolutely the key and the link for growers to become water managers in the future. And if you'll log on to TAWCsolutions.org, they have taken over the potential evaporation PET website. And that will, if you log on to that website, you can get these little forms on the table that tells you how to log on. It will give you information on what your crop is using at any particular time. You know, there's just no two ways about it. If you don't know how much the crop is using, there's no way you're going to manage it. At least there's no way you're going to manage it effectively. And so this is what, basically what I want to talk about. As we start off in the summer with cotton, and you get to the pre-square stage, the emergence stage, this would represent about how much water your cotton would be using in a pre-square stage. Don't worry about the amount, it's just the level on the glass. That would be very little. And you'll, as Dan said, a lot of the water losses with just evaporation off the soil. And then when you get into the first square stage, the amount of water that the cotton requires, or any crop requires, increases a little bit, okay? And as you would guess, when you get into first bloom, the amount of water that the crop requires increases more. It actually more than doubles. Okay. When you get into peak bloom, and early bowl set, and the crop demands a whole lot of water, okay? And as you progress from there down to late bloom, the water demand drops off. And as you get to open bowl, the water demand even drops more. So I know good and well that I hadn't told anybody here anything you don't already know. All crops follow this bell-shaped curve. But the one thing I want to do is if you look at this water, you can see that it increases and it goes down. And there's a couple principles here that most people can't supply all the water with their irrigation system when it gets to peak bloom. Most people can't even supply all the water that the crop needs when it gets to first bloom. So what we have here is I'm going to diagrammatically kind of show you what strategic irrigation is all about. This picture represents your irrigation, your rainfall. Okay? This is water that comes free from rain, and this is water that comes from your irrigation system. This picture is your soil reserve. That's how much water you have in the soil profile at any one particular time. Or with strategic information, or with strategic irrigation, you're actually building a soil balance. And so, what's going to happen early here in the pre-square stage, or even before that, you're going to either be making a decision on whether or not you ought to pre-water, pre-plant irrigate. In my area, on the Pullman Clay Loams, it'll take about 4 to 6 inches of pre-plant irrigation to fill that profile. Okay. The latest information that we have from the experiment station says that most of that water is gone by the time you get to first square. So you've invested 6 inches, 4 to 6 inches of your water, of your, let's say, your 14 to 16 acre inch allotment. You've invested 6 inches, and you get to this stage and you have very, very little left to support that crop. So what happens is, or what people are recommending happen is postpone that pre-plant irrigation and don't put as much on early. Maybe just come in here and right there at planting time, just put you a little bit of water in the soil profile so you can manage planting and get you by. And then as the season progresses, you'll add a little bit more water. You're going to get some rainfall. In my area, we don't get a whole lot of rainfall in May and June, so I'm going to go ahead and represent what we get in May and June. But as we go forward, and you get close to your first bloom, you see how much water that it's taking to grow the crop. This is a critical point here because you don't have the water, most people don't have the water to build this soil profile and meet the demand of the crop. So somewhere around in here in first square, like what Dan Creek says, is either through irrigation or rainfall, you're going to start building a soil profile. Okay? Dan mentioned how many inches per foot is available in Pullman Clay Loam soils. This year, we waited and didn't really build a soil profile on Eddie's farm much until we got that 3-inch rain, or 6-inch rain, whatever it is. So Eddie came in here, and he got a full soil profile, and it didn't cost him anything to put that on, really. He managed that. So the key take-home message is, if we're going to manage water, and you're going to manage it strategically, you're going to start building that soil profile around first square, rather than way back in January or February. The reason why we're doing this is we're giving rain a chance. If you can take that 6 inches and carry it over to 2014 and bank water, really that is more valuable to you as a farmer than what it costs you to pump to fill this profile. Okay? So then we get to the point where we're going to start irrigating. I need a volunteer. Anybody want to volunteer for Ben? Okay. So what we're going to do is right here at pre-square, we're going to start irrigating. And this is our soil reserve here. This is our irrigation and the rainfall. And you can see right here that this is about how much water that it's going to take the first bloom. So if we built this reserve here, then we don't have to put all this on with our irrigation. We'll come in here and we'll put a little bit on with the irrigation, and we're going to pull some out of the reserve. Okay. Then when we get to late bloom, peak bloom, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pull our rainfall and irrigation, and we're going to put so much water on, and then we're going to pull some out of the reserve.
This is the way to irrigate cotton in the Texas High Plains. No one has the amount of water they need. It is not only a water savings device, but what it is you're putting on water when the crop needs it as the demand increases. And if you do that, you're supplying the cotton with the water it needs to maintain those developmental stages. If you're putting all your water down here and you're losing it, you're not efficient, and no one has enough water to be efficient. So that's basically the way this works. Is you start, you build your reserve. Some of you have a bucket of reserve that's half empty and some half full on your, which you can irrigate. And what you do is you take a certain percentage of evapotranspiration and you irrigate. Move it in the soil, prior to squaring, flour, try to fill that profile up, and then you're supplementing that as you go through the season. If you take this and assume that this soil profile, this soil reserve is about 3 inches, I'm just going to use 3 inches as a real general example, that is worth about 240 pounds of net per acre, about 80 pounds per inch. And so if you realize, and folks, just understanding that this is the way it works and managing to where it works this way will make you money. So that basically the conclusion of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll sure try to answer. Well, the question was if you didn't put your 6 inches on pre-water, how much water do you put on? Well, you're going to probably need a couple inches, 2-3 inches, 2.5 inches, right prior to planting. You're going to get to the point where you're going to give rain every chance. And I'm talking primarily about cotton, corn, you probably would want to pre-water more. Because you're gonna have to gauge how much water you can put out over a given period of time. When you get to first square, you only have 21 days from square to bloom. So if you want to put all your pre-water on, you'll fill that profile, fill that soil bucket up, prior to squaring. If you can only put on a 1/2 inch a week, you're not going to be able to put on much. So you're going to have to gauge that as you go. So typically what most people do is put on a couple of inches, hope a little bit of rain comes on, 2.5-3 inches, and then right before the square stage, they'll start building that profile. And the thing I like about it is, you're not putting all this, you're really no worse off than if you put 6 or 8 inches on December or January, because you're going to have about the same amount. You'll be down to 2 inches by the time you get to planting time anyway. Sometimes you have to you'll be monitoring those seasons and get water to those root systems when it's really hot and dry. You need to be putting that pivot in a mode where you can get the root system wet, make it survive. So this offers you a little bit more flexibility. And then you put on your water first square to flower. And I was going to demonstrate the probing, how you can determine how much water is in the soil, and then you can add that balance back to your overall amount, add that on to what you have in the soil. Let's say you have 1.5 inches in the soil for 3 feet, probably put 1.5 inches to 2 more inches on before you got to the first flower. Then when you get to first flower, close to first flower, you're irrigating in a percentage of evapotranspiration, and that's where you're letting irrigation give you some, and your soil reserve give you the rest. Any other questions? I really urge you, everybody can learn something new. Take one of these TAWCsolutions.org, learn about potential evapotranspiration, learn about how much moisture your crop is using at any one time. You can't manage something that you don't know how much it's using. And this website is crucial to the future of water management in this area, in my opinion.
also a lot of that stuff is free.
It is free. It doesn't cost you absolutely nothing.
Thank you, Bob. Show your appreciation, please.